Hello and welcome back. My name is Aaron Sanchez and I'm happy to have you here. And today I have an important topic to talk about. I'm going to be talking about overcoming fitness obstacles and actually talk about some real life client stories today. So let's just jump right into it. Obstacles. If you watched my last video, I talked about the hero's journey, and part of the hero's journey is overcoming obstacles. And so if you aren't familiar with that, I do recommend that you go and watch that video. It really, over the next few weeks, all of my topics are kind of gonna bleed into one another. So yeah, I'll go ahead and put a link for that up. But obstacles, I mean, doesn't matter what you're kind of chasing, you're always going to run into problems. And that's not a negative thing. That just the famous Marcus Aurelius quote, you know, the obstacle is the way, what stands in the way becomes the way. So truly it is part of the journey, and it's just something that we need to game plan for. We need to formulate a plan and how we're going to navigate some of those situations. So that is what I will be talking about today. But one of the big things I hear between clients is time management challenges. And I have one client who is traveling 2 or 3 weeks out of the month. And so, you know, not being able to plan what you're eating, having control by cooking what you are eating in your house, sleep, stress management, the same gym, all of those things are very, very difficult in the best circumstances to work around. And when you have to do it while you're on the road and you have other people depending on you, it adds another layer of complexity. And so for my client who is frequently on the road, that's what we're having to work around. And his goal has been fat loss, which we've actually switched to maintenance. He hit his goal, so congrats there. But it was a struggle at first, and it was a lot of how that looked. For me, this is the fun part, because once you learn these skills, there's something you can carry with you forever, and that's how you sustain the results. So it was teaching him how to navigate menus, especially when you have no control over the restaurant. And it came down to just a few things when you were out: to prioritize protein. So we would use the FIST method for gauging a serving of protein. And for him specifically, who is a bigger guy, I had him doing 2 portions of proteins out, 2 portions of veggies, and then 1 portion of carbs. So that's how like the coaching part looked when he was eating out. But he was able to eat out, you know, all restaurants. And even when a restaurant didn't have the best selection of proteins or whatnot, he just made do. And it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to look exactly how you think it's going to look. So the best thing we can do is just to make the best choice and then just move on, not stress about it, which is what he did. And the other part of that was, it's one thing when you have a gym that you're familiar with, the equipment, what's available to you. But when you are in different cities every week, sometimes multiple cities in a week, it can be a challenge. And so just taking the same approach with eating out, where you're just going to do the best you can with the equipment available. And so that's what we did. Sometimes workouts would be the 2 or 3 movements just for multiple sets, done intensely. Nothing special, but the magic was his consistency and saying, okay, I'm just going to use what we have available. He'd shoot me a message saying, hey, this is what we have. I would send him a quick workout. And it was always he would always pre-plan. So the first thing he would do when he would check into a hotel is go to see how the gym was, and he would let me know what equipment was available. And not all gyms are under-equipped. There's a lot that are fully stocked, and so we'd luck out, and he would try to stay in hotels that had better equipment. But sometimes we had him just doing cardio because there wasn't much available, or he was on a time crunch. And it was just his consistency. It is his consistency because he's still doing that. Now the next kind of challenge is kind of overcoming nutritional misconceptions. It is very, very hard these days with so much information out there to know what is best, what works and what doesn't. And truthfully, it all kind of works if you are consistent, but just because it all kind of works, that doesn't mean we all should be doing, or you should be doing all of those things all of the time. And so with one client in particular, it has been overcoming these like dogmatic rules that have been put in place, like I can't eat after 7 or else it just turns to fat, and that I have to, carbs are the devil and they just turn into sugar, things like that. And here's the thing, like to be honest, I used to get frustrated by those things, like with the people, and then say, like, how do you fall into this? But now I don't, because it is confusing. And if you are trusting a source and they are very convincing, and then you have other people chiming in and saying how much success they had over, with this protocol, it's really easy to believe that is the only way. And so what we've really worked to undo is to add more foods into their diet, not take away foods, because they'd done that previously, and they came to me very frustrated, not seeing results, not having energy, and really just afraid to kind of eat even fruits like berries. And again, to go back, I used to get so frustrated by those things, and now it just makes me sad that that is where we're at, and that where we're saying fruit is bad, and fruit's the root cause of our issues, especially here in the United States. And so I think that for me is the most rewarding part of coaching, is I don't always have all the answers, but I have resources to get those answers, and to work to simplify diet for people so they're not afraid to go out to eat with their family. They're not afraid to incorporate what they thought were forbidden foods into their diet and feel like their health was just going to tank, or they were never going to be able to reach their progress. And so each client that I work with, their story, although there's similarities, there's also these differences that we have to overcome to make it truly their own journey. And overcoming nutritional misconceptions is a part of that you can eat fruit, that you can eat carbs, that If you want to have a slice of cake every now and again, it's not going to derail your progress, and you can eat out. You don't have to be a hermit that only eats in their house. Now, if that's your preference, that's fine too. You don't have to eat the cake. You don't have to include those foods. And one of my big nutritional philosophies is we're just going to eat more foods that make us feel good, and we're going to eat less of the food that doesn't. But what we're going to do is we're going to do that from a position of power. Is we're going to make a conscious decision that, like, hey, I know this doesn't, this slice of cake doesn't always sit well with me, but I want that piece of cake and I'm going to eat it. And I understand the consequences, but I'm just going to get right back on track with the next meal. So it's not that big of a deal. Now, this third story, it actually is my own. I was once on a fat loss phase. This is a few years back, and I felt like I was doing everything right. And I guess I'm a glutton for punishment, because I don't know why I stuck with it for 7 weeks and I dropped 0 pounds. In fact, the scale would jump up a pound and a half, and then it would go back to my starting weight for 7 straight weeks. It did not dip. And I know I was tracking correctly, or, in hindsight, I don't know. I think in hindsight, what it was is just my stress levels were just too high, and it was masking what was happening, the actual fat loss that was happening, and it just wasn't reflecting on the scale. And I can remember, it was one Friday night, my wife was at work, and I was just about to say, just to screw it all. Like, I told her, like, hey, we're going out. Like, I was going to eat everything, because 7 straight weeks and I had not lost a single pound. And I remember I was I was planning what I was going to drink, what I was going to eat, the desserts I was going to get. Like, I was just done. And she got caught up late at work and wasn't able to get home till later. And in that time, I kind of calmed down, and I was like, I'll give it one more night. And so I just had my normal meal that I had already planned. And lo and behold, the next day I had a whoosh where my stress levels just went so high, because I was so frustrated, that I settled down and relaxed. And the next day the scale dropped, I want to say it was 3 or 4 pounds. And then every week after that, the scale dropped, and I had visual proof and progress photos that I was losing fat. I was getting leaner in each picture, which normally week to week, it's a little bit harder to tell progress. Not impossible, but this was visible. And I lost fat consistently for 7 straight weeks after not losing a single pound on the scale for 7 weeks. So it's one of those things where even when you feel like you're doing everything right, even if you are doing everything right, your body's going to do what it wants. And I think the best thing we can do, and why I always recommend, if you can work with the coach and the coach is familiar with those things, then they could talk you off the ledge and say, it's part of the process, and let's just stick with it. And hey, I have your back. I am watching out for you, so you are not stressing so much about the scale, because there's other metrics too that we could go by. How are clothes fitting? If you lost any waist measurements, inches around your waist. How are your energy levels? How are your sessions in the gym? All of those things. And to be honest, some of those things matter more than the number on the scale, especially nowadays for me and even for clients. I try to let them know that the scale is just a reflection of one specific moment in time. It doesn't define all of the work that they are doing. And so I think that's the important lesson there. But these are three pretty typical things that I deal with in my coaching practice. Number one, time management, especially if you have kids, understanding that you don't have to be in the gym 5 days a week. Like we can do two days, we can do 3 days, and you can still progress. And that, yes, it would be great if you could do the same workouts week after week in the gym, in your hometown. But that's not always the reality. Sometimes you have to do home workouts. Sometimes you have to work out while you're on the road in a hotel gym, and you can still progress. So I think that's an important lesson, that it's just having the discipline to be consistent. And even if your situation isn't quote unquote perfect, you can still progress towards your goals. You can still make progress week after week. It's just going to take a little bit of adjustment, some game planning, but that's life, and it's completely 100% doable. Number two, that, unless you have a predetermined condition and that you've gone to the doctor and you've worked with a medical professional on, you have an allergy to something, so that it should be avoided in that case. In that case, you want to avoid it because there's a medical reason for that. But that a diet doesn't have to be just broccoli and chicken, or it can be broccoli and chicken. You have to create your diet based on how foods are making you feel. And so that's what I work with clients to understand, that sometimes it isn't the food, maybe it's the quantity, maybe it's the time of day you're eating it, or maybe it's just something that just really doesn't work with you, and you kind of have to just work around it. Maybe just don't eat it as frequently, don't eat it in as large of a quantity, but you can still include it in your diet, and again, make progress or sustain progress. And then lastly is having patience in the process. I don't know how many times a week I say, if you walk 10 miles into the woods, you got to walk 10 miles out. And it's just human nature to want results overnight. But if you don't want to, do the things that could get you super fast results, but you can't keep up indefinitely, in my opinion, there's no point in doing it unless it's just going to be a 2-week thing and then you have a different goal after. But it's very, very easy to get caught up in this, I've got to achieve my goal in, a month, when realistically it may take you 4 to 6 months. Doesn't have to, but maybe that's just the reality. So setting proper expectations, but also just being patient with the process and understanding that you only can be where you are. That's the only place you can operate from, but that you're taking the necessary steps to become the person you want to be. And by taking a little bit slower approach, you can sustain those results. You can overcome the challenges. You can learn how to make adjustments to work towards progress, but also to keep progress. So, I hope you found some value in those tips. Those are things I hear quite frequently. Some actionable things in there as well. As always, if you did find value, please hit the like button. Go ahead and subscribe. I will put my Instagram and Facebook information, also my website. I do a free discovery call. I can love to hear about your particular problem, like what you are trying to work through to see if we can be a fit. My name is Aaron Sanchez. Again, please hit the like button, subscribe, and I will see you next video.